Hello everyone. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about service worker in Google Tag Manager server side tagging. What is a service worker? Service worker is a JavaScript file which is used to intercept client-side GTM tracking requests, store them for a limited period of time, and then send them to server-side Google Tag Manager when a user connection is back online. Advantages of using service worker. The main advantage is that when you use service worker, you can minimize data loss due to network connection problems. Like if there is an internet connection problem, you can minimize event loss by using service worker. In other words, you can improve your data collection and you can improve measurement reliability. The name of the service worker script is usually sw.js. But it could also be something else like gtm-sw.js or gtag-sw.js. The name of the service worker script depends mainly on how the service worker is deployed by the developer. Who exactly uses service worker in GTM server side tagging? So it's not the end user who is using the service worker. It's not even you who is using the service worker. It is used in the background by client-side Google tracking scripts, and if you have deployed service worker for non-Google tags, then client-side non-Google tracking scripts use service workers. Who deploys service worker in GTM server-side tagging? Google automatically deploys service worker for client-side Google tags, and if you are using client-side non-Google tags, then you need to deploy service worker yourself. Now there are three cases when you need to interact directly with service workers. First is if you want to change the default behavior of the service worker, or if you want to deploy service worker for non-Google tags, or if your content security policy is blocking service worker registration or execution. So in these three cases, you may need to interact directly with service workers. Other than that, you do not have to deal with service workers directly. How to check if service worker is being used on a website? The first thing that you have to do is navigate to a website which uses server-side tagging. So I selected this random website. I know this website is using server-side tagging, and I will show you in a minute why. So right click on this page, click on Inspect, click on the Application tab, and under the cookies you can see a subdomain called collector.clickermedia.com. I know this subdomain is being used for server-side tagging because here you can see FPID cookie and there is a check mark below HTTP only column. So that's how I know server-side tagging is being used. There are also other ways to check server-side tagging, but I find this one the most reliable. Now to check whether this website is using service worker, I will click on this service workers link, and here you can see the service worker is registered for the subdomain collector.clickermedia.com. On a side note, server side tagging, you should not be using subdomains like collector or SGTM or anything which indicates tracking, because ad blockers can detect such type of subdomains. Now these are some settings below service workers. If you click on this offline button, your internet connection will go offline, and this could be useful for debugging service worker. You can click on update on reload. So what will happen is that when you reload the page, the service worker will update automatically, or you can bypass the network. If you want to see all the network requests initiated by service worker, click on this network request link. Now I have found that this may or may not work. So in case you want to see how the network request initiated by service worker looks like, here is how it looks like. So here you can see a file called sw.js, which is basically the service worker file. If you click on this file, you can see the request URL which will include service worker somewhere. You can also go to the network tab and you can check the tracking request URL to see whether service worker is being used somewhere in the URL. Can the use of service worker causes a loss in data collection? Yes, it can if the service worker is not registered correctly or if it is not activating correctly. Other thing that I would like to show you about service worker is if you click on this update, you can manually update the service worker. If you click on this unregister, you can unregister the service worker. So this could be useful for debugging purpose. And if you click on this see all registrations link, you can see all the service worker registration across origins. So that's all there is about understanding service workers in the context of server-side tagging.